Hello and welcome back to the podcast. This is one that will really make you think differently about your business and your freedom. And before we start today, one quick thing because it's super timely and it's related to what we're discussing today. I want you to know that next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I am running a free 3-day event on Zoom called How to Take 14 Weeks Off from Your Business Every Year. It's 1 hour each day, live with me, where we will work on your business to set you up to take those 14 weeks of protected time. Today's episode is the why. The event is the how. Now, there is no charge for this event, and I am not selling anything. This is a chance for you to spend some time with me live and apply things that will give you the freedom that you seek while your business continues to grow. I will give you all 6 pieces, the client structure, the team boundaries, the systems that let the whole thing work. And I'm going to walk you through each of them properly with time to actually explain them. There will be a workbook. You will actually work on your business. So if today's episode lands for you, definitely come to the 3-day event. The link to register is in the show notes. Replays will be available, but I believe that you will definitely want to be there live. Again, the link is in the show notes. I will see you next week. All right, let's get into the podcast episode. Today on the show, I'm pulling back the curtain on exactly how I built a minimum of 14 weeks of freedom into a 7-figure business. The calendar structure, the team boundaries, and the mindset shift that made it all possible. So you can do it too. Hello, beautiful. Welcome back. I want to tell you something that used to make people raise their eyebrows at me. I take the last week of every month off. Not from work entirely, necessarily. Most Mondays, I still work lightly. I may lead a client Q&A call or take a meeting I intentionally choose to take because it fits into the bigger vision of my business and my life. But otherwise, that last week of every month is spacious. No obligations, no team meetings, no standing agendas, no one having access to me in a scheduled, expected way. Every single month, Tuesday through Sunday of the last week, belongs to me. I choose how I spend it. Sometimes I take the entire week completely off and I go on a vacation fully unplugged with my family. Sometimes I head down to our house in Provence by myself for a few days to think, to cook, to read, maybe do some inner work. And sometimes it's just about remembering who I am outside of the business. Sometimes I use that space to create, to write, to vision, to work on the projects that require the best of me. And when you add it all up, this gives me several months every year where I'm not sitting on a Zoom call, I'm not in a team meeting, I'm not answering questions that could have waited, I am not putting out fires. Now, when you add in a couple of longer breaks around the holidays and the summer, it comes to at least 14 weeks of what I'm going to call protected time every year. I want you to write that down. Protected time. And I want to be very clear about something before we go any further. I'm sharing this because I want you to know that it is possible for you too. So I'm not saying like, oh, look at me, I've, figured out my life. I want to share this with you because I want you to have 14 weeks of freedom too, to choose how you want to live that time. So this is for you. And this is something I now guide my own clients to build into their business models, specifically taking the last week of every month off from clients, from meetings, and from just constant availability. And no, this is not a privilege, a reward that I'm giving to myself after decades of hustle, the way that, we give ourselves a retirement after, 40 years of working really hard. It is not a reward. It's not something that I stumbled into by accident. It was actually a decision that I made really early on in my career, even before I became a business coach. It was a structure that I built intentionally. It was a boundary that I held for a very long time. Now, I want to give you a little caveat and tell you the truth vulnerably. There were a few years when I stopped doing this, honestly, because I gave my power away to my team. I let the boundaries blur. I listened to them when they said, "Oh, we need you for this. There's a fire happening in the business." Or I let too much access creep back in. But those boundaries are back now. And I want you to see that 14 weeks of protected time is not some impossible fantasy. It is a business design decision. Write that down if you are able to write that down. It is a business design decision. Now, before we talk about how to create it, I want to reframe what we are actually talking about here. Mostly because when most people hear 14 weeks of freedom, they imagine vacation after vacation. They think I'm lying on a beach. They think, oh my God, I could never afford to not work for 14 weeks. But that is not necessarily what I mean. Yes, I absolutely want you to go away and take real vacations much more often than you do now. You're not bringing your laptop, you're enjoying yourself, you are unavailable. But what I am describing is something even more powerful. The majority of 1 week each month where your calendar is clear of client obligations, team meetings, a week where you are not reacting. You're not available on demand. It's a week where you decide what your highest and best use is. And some months, that time may be for vacation or rest or downtime. Other months, it may be for reading or doing some inner work or just reconnecting with yourself. And some months, it may be for sitting at your desk and working on something that truly lights you up with zero interruption. Sometimes it may be just a full week away, completely unplugged. The point is not what you do with the time. The point is that the time belongs to you. It doesn't belong to your clients. It's not for your team's questions. It's not for being in the day-to-day operations of your business where everything feels urgent and everything somehow lands back on your plate. That time is for higher level work. This is where the thinking happens, the visioning, the writing, the strategic conversations, reading that book that's going to give you the ideas to create that breakthrough in your business. It's about making the decisions that change the direction of the company. It could be journaling about what it is that you want to shift in your business in the next 24 months. It's about taking a break from the day-to-day of your business in such a way that the other 3 weeks are far more productive. And here's what I've learned after years of doing this. Exponential growth does not happen in between client appointments. It does not happen when your brain is completely distracted by back-to-back meetings. It does not happen in the tiny pockets of time left over after everyone else has had access to you. Exponential growth requires spaciousness. It requires uninterrupted space that is protected. And if you do not build that space intentionally, your business, your team, your clients, they're all going to fill every available hour with urgent, seemingly necessary tasks or meetings that could have waited the first week of the month. And this will go on forever and ever until you do something about it. So let's talk about how you can actually build this into your own business, because it doesn't happen by hoping for a lighter month, right? It does not happen by putting a placeholder on your calendar and then breaking that promise to yourself the minute something else shows up or a client really wants to talk to you. It happens through 3 very specific things. The first is a business model structure that makes it possible. Here's what I mean. If your business requires you to be personally available to clients every single week, then protected time will always feel impossible. So in my case, I designed my program so that my direct access weeks are clustered into the first 3 weeks of the month, not all four. Client calls and strategy sessions happen in weeks 1, 2, and 3. And the final week of the month is built into the architecture of the program. That Monday, there will be a Q&A call for all clients, but otherwise that week is encouraged as an integration week, a time for clients to implement what we've covered. There are no trainings on that last week. Those are done in the first 3 weeks of the month. So it is not framed as a week that Fabienne's not around, right? I am there for that Monday for the Q&A call, but it is designed as a spacious week for everyone involved. And when this is built into the container from the beginning, clients do not experience it as absence. They experience it as this is how we do things around here. This is part of how the program works. And that is the beauty of structure. It makes the boundary invisible because it was never presented as an exception. It was presented as part of the design. So that's the first piece, which is the business model. The second piece is team expectations that are set in advance. In my business, my team knows that the last week of every month is not a week where they can schedule meetings for me with anyone or escalate really anything to me. It's not because I remind them every month. It's because it is documented. It's trained. It's in my calendar. People know about it. It's part of how we do things around here. It's part of how we operate. So non-urgent questions, absolutely wait. Decisions that can be made without me are made without me. Anything and everything goes to my COO. She holds that week for me. She handles anything genuinely urgent, and there's a protocol that does not require pulling me back into the middle of everything. Now, if there is something urgent, she knows how to get in contact with me, right? I can speak to her. And all of this required us to build real systems before I could trust the space of doing this. Because if you try to take this kind of time off before your team knows how to operate without you, the week will fill with messages, text messages, emails, questions, fires, decisions. What do I do with this? Right? Things that only you supposedly know how to handle. And then you have two choices. You either answer everything, which defeats the purpose of having the week off, or you ignore everything for a full week, which can create chaos. Neither one of these feels like freedom. So the sequence actually matters. You build the systems first, you train the team, you document the decisions, and you clarify together what is truly urgent ahead of time. And then you protect your time. So that second piece is about team and systems. And the third piece is the mindset shift that allowed me to actually take this time off. Because here is what honestly happened the first time I blocked the last week of the month. I actually felt guilty. I felt like I was letting people down. I felt like maybe the business was going to fall apart without me being there for every little decision. It felt like it was somehow more serious to keep working, to keep showing up, and to keep being available to everyone. Like I was kind of goofing off by not being there. And a voice in the back of my head kept saying, "Who do you think you are taking this much time for yourself?" I was shaming myself. But after a while, I realized that that voice was not actually my truth, because one of my greatest values is freedom. So I want to be of service and I want to be a catalyst in so many people's lives. I want to create a big impact, but I also want a freedom, right? This is 7-figure freedom that I talk about. And so that shame and that guilt wasn't me. And I realized it was the worth that comes through exhaustion pattern that was doing the talking. That worth through exhaustion, the one that we talked about in a recent podcast episode on the mother wound. If you didn't listen to it yet, you should go back and listen to the mother wound one. It's that belief that rest has to be earned through depletion or hard work or exhaustion. The belief that if you are not constantly available, people pleasing, over functioning, you are somehow not being responsible. It's believing that your value comes from how much you give, how much you break your own boundaries, how much you do for other people rather than putting your needs first. And so once I got clear on that, I had to make a decision. Was I going to let that voice run my calendar and run my life? Or was I going to design my business around the life that I actually wanted? And I know how crazy it is to some people to think like, oh my gosh, the last week of every month off. But the more you think about it, you're self-employed. You can do it. And so when I had that decision, I chose the life. And here's what happened. The business did not fall apart. The clients did not leave. The team did not collapse. Instead, I came back to week 1 of the next month, more energized, more creative, and more on purpose than I had been if I had not taken that time. That space of 1 week made the other 3 weeks of the month better. And I also noticed something else, not just for me, but also everyone inside my world. Because a depleted Fabienne is not an asset. A rested, visionary Fabienne, fully present Fabienne is the asset. And obviously the same is true for you, especially for us as women, where obligation is stamped on our forehead, right? At home, at work, in society, everywhere. So having that time off to do what we want to do, to not owe anyone anything, is actually pretty revolutionary, and it makes everybody happier in your life. Now, I want to say something about what this protected time gives you, just beyond you feeling like rested and jazzed, right? For me, this is where so much of the important work has happened. This is when I've written many, many chapters of my book in a single week. It's where I've designed new programs that I didn't have time to do in between client appointments. It's where I've had conversations that led to some of the biggest pivots in my life. It's where I've sat quietly enough and journaled long enough to actually hear what wants to come through next in my business, in my life. And you cannot do that when you are moving from one Zoom meeting to another Zoom meeting to another Zoom meeting. You cannot think at that level when you are constantly tracking what you owe to everyone else. And the exponential growth activity work that actually moves the needle in your business requires you to be unavailable to all of the urgent stuff so that you can be available to the important things, the ones that matter most, the long-term visions. And if you never protect the time, the important things never get the best of you. They don't get your clarity. They don't get your thinking, ever. This is why I say that 14 weeks of protected time is not a reward for building a successful business. It is part of how the business becomes successful. It's the space, it's that spaciousness that creates the growth, not the other way around. I really want you to think about that. And before I close, I want to give you something practical to take into this week. I want you to take a look at your calendar for next month. And I want you to find the last week. And I want you to ask yourself, what would it look like to protect the majority of that week? Right? And maybe that's just not possible. And so maybe you just start with one day. That last week of next month, can I take a day fully unplugged from clients, from meetings, from everybody? Right? And maybe then it becomes 2 days the following month. And then it becomes 4 days, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And then maybe eventually it becomes Tuesday through Sunday. And you block it, not as a maybe, not as an if things slow down or if nothing else shows up, right? You block it as a boundary. In my first book, Embrace Your Magnificence, I call a boundary self-love in action. So you do this as an act of self-love. You set that boundary. That 3 or 4 day period, that's yours. You communicate it to the team. You communicate it to the clients. You set that up for yourself. Okay? I want you to do that. And then I want you to ask yourself 2 questions. The first one, what would need to be true about my business model or how I structure my work or deliver results to the clients for this to happen every single month without fail, right? What would I need to change to my business model for this to be true every month? Second, What would my team need to know or to understand or to be empowered to do while I'm not there for that time to actually be mine without fail every single month? What do I need to do with my team so that this becomes a regular thing? And those two questions, when you answer them, will show you exactly what to build. That's where you start. Here's what I want you to take with you today. The 14 weeks did not happen because I got lucky. They happened because I made a decision, because I built a structure, and because I held a boundary. And the majority of the last week of every month is blocked and protected and non-negotiable. Sometimes lightly working, sometimes fully unplugged and on a beach somewhere, always spacious, not just for vacation, but sometimes for exponential growth work and for the downtime that makes everything else possible, for the life your business is supposed to be giving you. I will see you next week. Next week, we are going to be talking about the systems needed to make something like 14 weeks off a reality and the entire process behind it. Okay, until then, sending you so much love. One last thing before you go. I said at the end there that next week we are going to be talking about the systems that make something like this real. 14 weeks off protected. And I want to do that properly. And an episode like this one isn't quite enough room. So next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I'm running a free 3-day event. There is no offer being made. It is you, me, working on your business. 60 minutes a day, live with me on Zoom. It's called How to Take 14 Weeks Off from Your Business Every Year. And here's what we're going to cover. Day 1, we do a diagnostic together, not some general thing. Yours, a diagnostic on your business. Which specific parts of your business are currently load bearing on you personally, right? Most women have their answer inside the first 30 minutes. And then I'm going to cover the 2 pieces you can start changing this week, okay? Day 2 of the 3-day event is the structural day. And that's when we're going to talk about the team that makes decisions without waiting for you and the operations manual that holds everything currently living in your head. I will show you the actual if this then that entries that I use in my own company, the ones that let my COO hold that last week for me every single month. And day 3, how you actually let go and have it be true. 14 weeks protected. And how just one protected week becomes 14 over a few years. Now, remember what I said about sequence. You build the systems first, you train the team, you document the decisions, and then you protect the time. And that is what these 3 days are for. Like I said, no charge. There is no offer being made. Tuesday through Thursday next week. Click the link in the show notes. I'd love to see you there.